The National Weather Service in Raleigh, it's Nick Petro with your tropical storm Debby briefing as of 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday, the 6th of August. So let me just jump right into the details here. And here's the latest track from the National Hurricane Center as of 11 a.m. this morning. And one of the things that I want to draw your attention to is just the nature of how things are going to slow down here once it's offshore. And clearly, we don't want these things sticking around, right? Because the longer it sticks around, the more rain. But it's going to move east off of Charleston, basically come back ashore in South Carolina. And look, it takes till Friday morning before it's in the center of North Carolina. Now, remember, the cone doesn't show you where the impacts are going to be. It just shows you the most likely track of the center. So remember, keep in mind that impacts occur far outside of the cone. So that's an important thing. So just getting right to the details here. The primary threat will be heavy rain. This is a heavy rain event. Okay, and because there's going to be heavy rain, there will be a lot of trees that fall down when the ground is soaked. Okay, so but the main hazard will be the heavy rain. And that's going to result in flash flooding initially and then river flooding subsequently. Now, the bands have already begun to spread into southern portions of the state. We're expecting the storm to take its time, eventually come back ashore in South Carolina, then drift northeast across North Carolina late Thursday through Friday night. And look at these rainfall amounts: 10 to 15 inches across the Sandhills and southern coastal plain, 6 to 10 inches in the Triangle, 5 to 7 inches in the Triad. So that's a lot of rain, and that's why our flash flooding concern is what it is, and eventually river flooding. So again, just to kind of show it another way, 25 to 40 mile per hour winds will be possible Thursday through Friday night. And based on the current track, that'll be mainly the Sandhills and coastal plain. But remember, when your ground is completely soaked like a sponge, the roots of the trees weaken, and I wouldn't be surprised to see trees falling down, a lot on during this episode, particularly tomorrow and Thursday and Friday when the heaviest rain falls. So I would be prepared for power outages, scattered at least, perhaps even a little more numerous where the core of the strongest wind gusts happen. Okay, flooding rain is expected, basically eventual river flooding, I should say. Initially flash flooding and then eventual river flooding, all of central North Carolina. The rain is starting already. Today, it's going to continue through late Friday. And then the last hazard will be these isolated tornadoes, primarily near and east of the track, primarily east of I-95, basically through Friday. So all right, let's see. What else do I want to show? Bear with me for just a second. So again, just to kind of, again, yet another way to kind of demo what we think are the greatest threat: flooding rain, flash flooding, then river flooding, isolated tornadoes, and some pockets of wind damage. So let's see here. Let me just take you through a couple of tabs that I have open. There's the latest track. And why is this a problem? Why is the rain gonna add up so much? And by the way, before I get to that, here is the latest southeast portion of the U.S. Radar summary here, and you can see there's several bands. And one thing I want to point out is it's in these higher reflectivities you see, and these bands that come ashore that will bring that tornado risk, that isolated tornado risk. But if this pocket here of rain, it's on the north side and stretches over on the northwest side, basically of the northern half, doesn't move very fast, well, you could imagine how the flooding risk will increase. Okay. Now, again, why is it going to stick around? This is just one of many different models that we look at, and you could see this is a simulation for the storm track. This is valid. This would be valid. Bear with me for just a second here. This afternoon. And then this evening, and you can see how it goes back out over the water. That is Wednesday morning. And here we have Wednesday afternoon, and there is Wednesday evening, and then Thursday morning. Look at that pocket of heavy rain. This is a depiction of rainfall, but notice how the pocket of heavy rain finally begins to overspread North Carolina here on Thursday. That's why we think the heaviest rain is going to be on Thursday. and then eventually it just slowly makes its way northward. Here is early Friday morning, and it's still raining. And then this is Friday late morning, I should say. This is late afternoon on Friday, still raining. And then things don't really exit until there. Finally, that's Saturday morning, believe it or Saturday morning. So anyway, it's just a slow moving system. All right. Now, remember on this tab, I talked about how these outer bands here can bring the tornado risk. Well, this is a depiction of where we think the greatest tornado risk will be today, basically south and east of Fayetteville. Okay, you see that green, dark green, and yellow? That's where we think the greatest risk for tornadoes. And when I say tornadoes, I don't mean these long-lasting, EF3 massive tornadoes that track forever. Outer rain band tornadoes, they are generally weak. Okay, they can cause damage, a lot of damage, but they only last generally a few seconds. They touch down, they spin up real quick, they are on the ground real quick, and they're gone just as fast. So we're talking things that only last a matter of seconds. But where they do touch down, they produce pockets of enhanced damage. They could, tear a roof off, knock a bunch of trees down, that kind of thing. So again, keep in mind that will be possible, again, where you see this green and yellow. Here is tomorrow's threat, and basically it's spreading out along the coast. But then Thursday, as the storm center lifts north, we could see that dark green here basically shows us where the greatest risk for these tornadoes will be, essentially along and east of I-95. Okay, so that's the tornado risk. Let's then shift gears to the rainfall. How much rainfall are we going to get each day? Okay, so this is today's rainfall forecast. So we're talking, basically the heaviest rain being east of I-95 and generally south of I-40 there, the portion there, east of 95. So we're talking, southeast North Carolina is where we're going to see multiple inches of rain. If you get up toward the Triad, for our friends in the Triad, you're not going to have as much rain today, a whole lot of rain. So again, and that's because the storm is just going to take its time to move north. But by tomorrow, look how these heavier rainfall amounts will have pushed north. So you're talking basically from areas from Roanoke Rapids to Roxborough to Greensboro, down toward Albemarle and Charlotte southward. That's where we think the heaviest rain is going to be. If you're down basically from Raleigh south and eastward, we're talking 2.5+ inches of rain, 4 inches in Fayetteville, 4 inches at Goldsboro. We're talking this kind of rain will bring the risk for flash flooding. When you see streams and creeks rising real quick, or in urban areas where the typical places that stormwater has a hard time running off or draining, or the typical low spots, there's likely to be flash flooding in those areas. So that's tomorrow's rainfall. This isn't accumulated. This is day by day, just to clarify that. Now Thursday, this is Thursday's rainfall. Yeah, this isn't accumulation. This is actual additional amounts, what we're expecting. So 3 to 5 inches of rain widespread across central North Carolina here just on Thursday. Before I show you the 3-day, let me jump down to Friday's rainfall amount. And again, you could see maybe another inch and a half of rain on Friday. So when you add up 7 days rainfall amount, and by the way, that is Saturday's rain, so not quite as much. And then Sunday's rain even less as it's pulling out, and then Monday should be mostly dry. Okay, so when you add up 7 days amount, which basically encompasses the entire event, some places we're talking a foot of rain, particularly south and east of Raleigh. As much as 6 to 8 inches of rain, across the Triad up toward Roxborough. So, again, these types of rain amounts typically lead to not only flash flooding, but also river flooding as well. And we'll talk here momentarily about the river flooding. All right, so let's go to this graphic I want to show is a way to depict the areas that have the greatest risk for flash flooding. And again, once again, the word flash means it develops quickly, it doesn't stick around, and it drains off pretty quickly as well. So again, we're talking streams and creeks that come out of their banks. We're talking urban areas where there's a lot of concrete and stormwater that needs to run off and get carried away. We're talking just typical low spots in topography, the places that that have flooded before. Okay, so the areas in red and purple have the highest risk to see that. Yellow, you could see it, but not your risk is a little lower. In green, you could see it as well, but you have probably the lesser chance, say, compared to the red and purple. So that's today. This is tomorrow, so we get the red all the way up into Raleigh, meaning we're probably going to see pretty decent coverage of flash flooding from areas south and east of Raleigh, perhaps as far back as the Triad, some flash flooding. But then on Thursday, this is when we expect our greatest risk for flash flooding to be, again, on Thursday. All right, so that's pretty much all of central North Carolina will have the risk to see that flash flooding. Okay, so we talked about, the flash flood threat. What about the river flood? Of course, all that water, up to a foot of rain, has to find its way somewhere back into the water cycle, and that's part of the runoff process, and it's going to run off into the rivers. And this is the latest forecast from the River Forecast Center. They're part of the National Weather Service that generates the rivers forecasts. So one thing I want to convey to folks here is this is starting with the Neuse River. You're probably thinking, well, if we're going to get a foot of rain feeding into the Neuse River, how do you only have minor flooding? Well, that's because the system that generates these forecasts only takes into account 2 days worth of rain. Okay, so the forecast, which now calls for minor flooding on the Neuse at Smithfield, hasn't yet incorporated in Thursday's rain. Okay, so this is basically what type of flooding we would expect with 6 inches of rain feeding into the Neuse. Now, if you add another 6 inches of rain to this, that could fall, Thursday into Friday, this is probably going to see crusting, potentially up into moderate, maybe even approaching major. So the point is that this is we're pretty certain. I would pretty much take it to the bank that we're going to have at least minor river flooding. But as we rerun these models, once we can get Thursday's rainfall into it, then we're likely going to see these river flood stages push above moderate. Okay, maybe even close to major. And that's at Smithfield. Here's Goldsboro, and it's already hitting moderate just with today and Wednesday's rain. So again, let that sink in. It's already forecast to hit moderate with only today and Wednesday's rain into the model. If you add Thursday's rain, imagine what it's going to be, okay? This is another place I want to show here. This is for our friends down in Sampson County, the Black River near Tomahawk. With just today and Wednesday's rain, we're expecting major flooding there on the Black River near Tomahawk. So if you're listening from Sampson County, get ready for some pretty substantial flooding. Because when we add Thursday's rain into this mix, it's only going to go higher. Okay. If you're over toward the Fayetteville region along the Cape, this is the Little River at Manchester. And again, with today and tomorrow's rain, that would push the forecast to moderate. So again, you add another 6 inches of rain on top of that. You see where I'm going with that, right? So here's the Cape Fear at Fayetteville, minor flooding. And then let's continue down the Cape Fear, and again, minor flooding is a pretty good bet. All right, so as we go, and again, because the heaviest rain will spread across our northern portions of central North Carolina and Triad portions of central North Carolina, we're not seeing river flooding showing up in the model yet. So if you're wondering what about the Haw and what about the Yadkin Basin, hang in there. I bet you the river simulations later today or maybe even tomorrow will begin to show some minor flooding. Lastly, the Rocky River here, and that too is forecast to hit minor approaching a moderate, and again, that's only 2 days worth of rain. Okay, so anyway, keep that in mind. All right, so those were the main things I wanted to show. By the way, these slides here that I'm flipping back and forth, I will be emailing these out here as soon as I can get everything uploaded on the web and get these pushed out. Okay, this is the other thing I really wanted to take a moment to show, because this is kind of helps you kind of get a sense for when do I got to be ready for all this. And you can see wind, for central North Carolina, at least. If you're down near the coast, it'll be a little sooner than this. But if you're in central North Carolina, we're talking Thursday through Friday. Rain, it's going to get increasingly worse tomorrow, but Thursday even into Friday, we're looking at heavy rain with that flash flooding, and then of course the subsequent river flooding. We're talking lasting through the weekend, and then that tornado risk is basically from potentially even later tonight through early Friday. Okay, so we update this slide several times throughout the day. So as it changes, we'll keep you up to date. All right. So I think we've pretty much hit on all the high points here. Prolonged event, flash flooding first, river flooding prolonged and thereafter. I would expect quite a bit of power outages. That's one thing we, for our media partners that are listening, please let folks know that clearly this is not only a rain event, and obviously you want to let folks know, don't drive through areas where water's covering the road, particularly at night when you can't really tell the flood risk. The best thing to do is just, not even try to venture out or travel if you can avoid it. But also let folks know that be prepared for power outages, because even though we're only expecting, even though wind is going to be a lesser impact, when the ground's like a sponge, trees will just fall over on their own, even without the wind, when it's so wet, right? And that's how you lose power. So anyway, those are the high points. All right, we're going to do another briefing like this, a live webinar at 5:30 today. Any changes to the forecast, we'll summarize then. I'm going to email these slides out to, if you're on our email list, you'll get them here soon. And yeah, we'll go from there. Of course, we're here 24/7, 365, and maybe tomorrow we might start running our continuous webinar. So be on the lookout for that. Otherwise, we'll be back here at 5:30 to do another one of these. Thanks so much.